What's up everyone and welcome to a very special video. Digital Extremes reached out to me recently because it's the 10th anniversary of Warframe and have asked me to take a look at how much weapon modding has changed in Warframe over the years. So just to get this out of the way, this is a sponsored video and a huge thanks to Digital Extremes for sponsoring this video and for giving me access to these amazing Incarnons a few days early. I got into Warframe around update 6 when Nyx was released and have been pretty much hooked ever since. There was so much to do in game, but the one thing that's kept me going is build crafting. Over the years many things have changed and that's always kept us on our toes, with things to update and new things to try. And this is the most obvious since the release of Duviri and the Incarnon upgrades to some of the weapons that needed a helping hand, or like the focus of this video, the original Stalker weapons, some absolute fan favourites. So I guess we should take a look for some builds, right? Hi guys and welcome to another episode of Let's Mod Warframe. Today we're going to take a look at the scythe dropped by the Stalker mini-boss, the Hate. The Hate was introduced back in Update 8 as one of the 3 weapons that the Stalker mini-boss would drop, alongside the Despair throwing knives and the Dread bow that I've already reviewed back in episode 4, the Hate. And for Grineer we're going to start with the stance mod of Reaping Spiral. We're going to go with Fury, we're going to go with Pressure Point. Hi guys and welcome to episode 4 of Let's Mod Warframe. Today we're going to take a look at the bow belonging to the Stalker, the Dread. Now the Dread is one of 3 drops that you can get when you kill the mini-boss, the Stalker, and this makes the Dread somewhat hard to farm, but the best way to farm this is to run every single boss in the game until the Stalker sends you a message saying that you are now marked for death. Okay, so let's start modding the bow. We'll go with Serration and Split Chamber. We'll ignore the empty polarity because that's one I've actually added in a little bit later with Former. We'll go with Speed Trigger to help increase the pullback of the bow, and we'll go with Stormbringer and Cryo Round. Well, that clearly didn't work. I'm sure I did an updated version of these though. Hey guys and welcome to a short updated build video. Now I know this was supposed to have been part of Stalker Week, which was what, like 2 weeks ago at this point? However, better late than never, and it is an updated Dread build video. Now, at the moment I've got bladed rounds in there instead of Argon Scope, and that replaces Fanged Fusillade that I had on the build before, as well as I replaced Speed Trigger with Vile Acceleration, since the speed increase is worth that very slight drop in the damage that you get from Vile Acceleration. Hey guys and welcome to another episode of Let's Max Warframe, where today we're going to be continuing Stalker Week, taking a look at his signature weapons. Today comes the original melee weapon, forgotten for a long time, given a new lease of life with a buff not too long ago. We are of course taking a look at the Hate. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod the Hate. Now it doesn't come with any polarities as standard. I've added 4 Former. You don't really need to add this much, but this is because I've been experimenting with builds for years with this thing. I think two pretty much will do it. I've got 2 Vs and 2 dashes on here. You probably just need a V and a dash in all honesty.
Hold on. I'm sending auxiliary life support.
Well, we're getting there. Wonder what we can pull off with these new Incarnons. Well, that's a bit more like it. As you can see, weapons and weapon modding over the years have changed dramatically. Between Prime mods, Arcane's, Acolyte mods and now the Incarnon system, weapon modding has been shaken up massively. Gone are the days of all the weapon mods on the weapon being completely passive. We now have so many that have activation conditions, some of which require things like aiming down the sight, some which activate on headshots, and as such it's really driven a much more engaging gameplay loop when it comes to using some of these weapons. Not only is it driven a more engaging way of playing with the weapons, but the Incarnon system makes it so you can tailor the weapon to your playstyle with the upgrade system, and the special mechanics of the Incarnon opening up weird and wonderful ways of modding, some of which entirely change the way you approach modding them. I've had more fun modding weapons in Warframe than I ever have. Most weapons take a couple of hours of pretty heavy testing before I settle on and I'm happy with a build, and even then, occasionally, more mechanics are uncovered that change it again. So with this video, let's start with the Dread, Stalker's signature bow. Applying the Incarnon to this will split its damage mostly between heat, and the rest is slash and impact. Activating the Incarnon mode will make every shot fire a catch moon style projectile with infinite enemy punch through. I don't really need to tell you how good that is. We all know how good the Nataruk is with a similar mechanic, but how are we going to build it into the Dread? Evolution 2, coup de grace for increasing the base damage by 70 while giving a stacking damage and fire rate buff on hit, stacking up to 5 times, which is then lost if you miss a shot. Evolution 3, swift deliverance for flight speed. We're going to be using galvanized scope, so the faster the projectile the better. It covers off a bit of the downside of releasing the aim too early and speeds up its playstyle a fair bit. Evolution 4, elemental balance for increasing our status chance by 24% to try and increase our chance for slash procs. The full build is then galvanized chamber for multi-shot, galvanized aptitude for the damage buff based on applied statuses, galvanized scope for crit chance on headshots, easy to pull off with this catch moon style projectile, vital sense and hammer shot for crit damage, hammer shots also buffing our status chance, hunter munitions to give extra slash procs. The reduced slash weighting means it doesn't proc slash as often as it does while not in Incarnon mode, so it just needs a little bit of extra help pushing those slash procs out. Then we have primed shred. Fire rate is pretty low at base, so the fire rate helps with that a lot. I also noticed the projectile hit bits of the world a fair bit, so while it does have infinite enemy punch through, it doesn't have any object punch through. So if it hits like road geometry somewhere, it doesn't actually do anything, it just sort of impacts there and just dissipates. Punch through helps with that a lot. And then we got more flight speed in our Exilus to cover off galvanized scope. Merciless here is basically acting as our serration, since we ran out of mod space, but the loss of serration for the prime shred made the weapon feel infinitely better to use. So is it good? Well, the footage in the background should hopefully show that. It's absolutely beastly. I love it. Warframe is a game all about power fantasy, gradually growing more and more powerful as you go. Well, Dread had me feeling that power, doing multiple hundreds of thousands of damage per slash tick, streams of damage numbers, heat procs going off all over the place. This scratches that power fantasy itch in a big way, and I'm all here for it. It's absolutely worth grabbing a Riven for too. I'm lucky enough to have a double crit minus infested Riven, which I can actually replace galvanized scope with and avoid the downside of that mod, which is if you release your aim while the shot is sort of still in the air, the projectile will lose the crit buffs that the mod gives. It's not too much of a downside, but it does put you into playing with a very specific playstyle, aiming a lot longer than you would without a Riven. But with or without the Riven, the power is absolutely there and will deal with anything you put it up against with ease. Imagine this in the circuit with the double status effect damage and status spread. It would be more of a monster than it already is. I suspect the Dread might become my main weapon for a while. It is incredible. In fact, this weapon is the only thing that seems to have been strong enough to actually kill me. So with the Dread being that good, how does Stalker's signature melee, the Hate, hold up? Well, the evolution here will give you increased melee damage and some movement buffs, but the big thing is that on light attack it will throw out a projectile which explodes doing heat, impact and slash damage. Seems to be the same split as the Incarnon mode stats. However, despite the really special part of the Incarnon mode being tied to the light attack, a bunch of the evolution options for the Hate are specific to heavy attacking, and so much so that we actually have two builds to talk about here, light attack build and a heavy. So let's start with that light build. Which evolutions are we going to be taking here? Evolution 2, I went with Swordsman's Flourish. It gives you an increase to your base damage and additional chance for more combo if you have a melee equipped. I went with this because mostly it's going to be the most often you're going to have a melee only than to have all three of Stalker's weapons equipped. The other option is definitely more heavy build focused. Evolution 3, I personally went with Orokin Reach for 0.8 more range to the weapon. This is personal preference though. If you want more combo duration, you can select Resolute Force for that. I didn't find building combo difficult at all, so I went with the extra range. Also, you can cover that off with Naramon. Evolution 4, I went with Subtle Force for that combination of status and crit. Just felt like the best option of the three to me. However, this one is kind of one that you can play around with and see how you feel. The build itself is a fairly standard light attacker. Condition Overload because we're running viral dual stats with Weeping Wounds. We're almost always going to be getting at least 2 procs from our weapons due to our status chance, not to mention an extra 2 more from our stance, which is Reaping Spiral, so it outpaces Prime Pressure Point pretty heavily. Viral Slash on pretty much every hit is not something to be sniffed at, that's for sure. Then Prime Fury for attack speed, Blood Rush for crit chance, and Organ Shatter for crit damage. The light attack build is an absolute blast. It is a proper blender, throwing status procs everywhere. You can see in the footage just a sea of viral and slash procs just absolutely everywhere, ploughing through everything in front of me with pure ease. As with any light attacker, Examite are a tough nut to crack, even without the additional combo working in the footage, because, well, I forgot to remove my weapons to be honest. I have no problems rebuilding combo, so I actually ended up using my full charge heavy attacks on Examite, Sentience and anything vaguely chonky that came near me. I would say that the light attacking Hate might just be the best hybrid light and heavy attack weapon in the game right now. It absolutely deletes everything around it, and it is an absolute blast to use. But wait, there's more. Hate has another build to work with, the heavy attacker. Switching around the Incarnon evolutions, we start with Evolution 2, which gives us 30 initial combo if we're cosplaying Stalker, and running both Dread and the Despair. It's worth using these for that initial combo buff, especially since, at least the Dread is an absolute beast. Evolution 3, we go with the 60% heavy attack wind-up speed. Evolution 4 is the 10% crit chance, since we're working with guaranteed heavy procs from it being a scythe, so status chance is kinda wasted. Nothing too crazy for the heavy attack build though, double Umbra on here for the damage and the crit chance. They're both boosting each other. Prime Fury for attack speed, Prime Reach for range, Killing Blow for heavy attack damage and more wind-up speed, Amalgam Organ Shatter for crit damage and even more wind-up speed, Corrupt Charge to take us up to a 4x initial combo, and then Life Strike for healing on heavy attack. Helmet choice affects this final slot a fair bit. You could run Life Strike and a damage boosting ability like Roar for slash procs in the millions, or really any other helmet ability that applies to slash procs. Or you could drop Life Strike entirely, run Gloom, and then replace it with Gladiator Might for more crit damage. But what you get with this build is not just the strongest heavy attack melee in the game, but also the best feeling. It glides through enemies with effortless ease, hitting them with slash procs in the multiple hundreds of thousands, wading into a group, swinging once and having them all die as you've moved on to the next group. It's such a powerful and such a mobile playstyle. 1 slapping XMI, 4 slapping Acolytes. It's brilliant fun, it's super effective. Admittedly, it's not as flashy as the light attack build, and it's a lot less going on with its playstyle, but it is undeniably efficient. So that means that both the Dread and the Hate are incredible picks this week from Incarnon Weapons. Huge thanks to Digital Exchange for this opportunity to take a look at them ahead of their release this weekend. It felt right to look at these weapons as part of the 10-year anniversary. Stalker was a big part of the game when I joined back in 2013. I remember hunting these weapons down, chasing Despair for ages. My friend actually went AFK and missed the drop when he finally did give us that blueprint. took me another 3 weeks to be able to get another one. But Hate and Dread specifically have a special place in my heart. Dread was the 4th video that I ever did on my channel way back in the day, and Hate was not only early in my channel, but snippets of that video appeared in the Man at Arms video that they did creating the Hate in their workshop. That was such an incredible opportunity, and just to see my footage in that video was absolutely brilliant. Modding in Warframe has come on an enormous journey, and one thing that DE has never been afraid to do is push boundaries, whether that's the content they create or the direction they take with systems like the Incarnons. I've enjoyed the Incarnon system massively and what it brings to the table. I am looking forward, so looking forward to seeing what the future weeks bring in terms of upgrades. So with all that said, I hope you enjoyed this blast from the past, this walk down memory lane. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And here's to another 10 years of Warframe.